Hello, I'm a BX Toycat and welcome back to the second channel video. Today I have something that's not Geography of Toycat, but instead it's going to be something that vaguely fits in with the travel/world theme of this channel, because I wanted to talk about what the actual future of flying will be. Because if you read/hear the news a lot, then you'll see this really exciting, glamorous new future that really isn't, what the actual future is actually looking like. So I figured in today's video, why not talk about, the reality of the future that isn't going to be as stuff that looks as cool and exciting as, the baby boom, which can fly from London to New York in just 3 hours. It looks really cool, it seems exciting, and Sir Richard Branson's on board. But the actual future, it's a little, less exciting in one way, but I think it's way more exciting for average people like you and me for reasons I'll be going through in today's videos. Hopefully you all do enjoy it, the future of flying and stuff. Let's get straight into it. So let's start by quickly mentioning that whenever these, really exciting things come out, which is like every 6 months to a year or something like that, they're always sold as like, oh, we're gonna have supersonic transport, it's gonna be really cool. But remember, we've already done supersonic transport, and it's not like we've just, dabbled in it a little bit and then we kind of done. We actually had lots of supersonic, aircraft projects that were all getting off the ground. Americans had at least 2 of them. The Soviets have one, only lasted for a year, and the longest lasting and most famous is the Concorde. So this was a British-French co-developed plane that was perhaps one of the biggest, flying feats in the world, because it is an aircraft that can travel at Mach 2, double the speed of sound. It can literally, breach the sound barrier, and the sound, travels slower than it. It's so many cool things about this plane, but it stopped being serviced in 2003, and as a result, any plane you can fly today will go slower than the speed of sound, which sounds ridiculous, right? Like, why did we create something so cool and then leave it? But I guess that's why I'm explaining with today's video, because, again, Concorde sounds like a really cool phenomenon until you get into the details. The phrase, the devil is in the details, I don't really like that one too much, but I think it's really, really true here, because, yeah, the devil really is in the details of the Concorde, because first of all, you look at this plane, it's a really nice looking plane. It looks way better than, any modern plane. Look at that plane. It's not as pointy and cool as Concorde, and yeah, Concorde probably was one of the cooler looking planes, but bear in mind that's, one of the parts of the engineering, because it was a super hot plane on the outside and you had to go through all these little bits of effort. But then bear in mind, it's actually a pretty small plane too. That's one of the reasons why it looks like that, which means that you can only get 60 passengers on there. Again, the Boeing equivalent, the 2707 or something, the Boeing equivalent was going to have way more people on it, but that never got off the ground because they couldn't make it work. The only working supersonic plane only had 60 passengers. And bear in mind, if you're doing long distance flights, because again, the big exciting selling point of Concorde is it could basically half the flight time, if anything. So London to New York is the most exciting one. Oh, it currently takes 6 hours. Do it in 3.5. Isn't that cool? Or sometimes 4. But yeah, you could basically do these flights much, much faster. But because you're doing, a flight that would usually have 500, 600 passengers, or at least 300, let's say, with only 50 or 60, you can imagine how that, first of all, already hits the cost massively. You have to have all those staff, you have to have all the same, you have to have the gate, you have to have all this stuff, and you're only getting like a tenth of the passengers, if that. So basically, yeah, you have this massive reduction in passengers, which obviously is going to hit the price first of all. But then the second key point, because again, the key point is I'm trying to get across here about why Concorde isn't successful, really is down to just price. Because air travel is only kind of the big kind of revolution in air travel that happened in the last century is the fact that it is affordable to pretty much anyone, but Concorde was not that. The average cost of a Concorde ticket was somewhere in the thousands of dollars. I think $12,000 for a return wasn't unheard of, which is crazy to think about. Even when you look at the new exciting predictions from Sir Richard Branson, £2,500 for a New York to London flight, that's something like $6,000, $7,000 for a return. That's just more money than anyone's willing to pay for the tiniest speed reduction. Again, 6 hours to 3.5, spend 10 times the price. Is it worth it? Not really. So it basically is a ultra first class plane, an ultra first class plane that burns so much fuel that it has to cost that much. So it's not like it's just ultra profitable. It is just like, again, it uses so much fuel in the air because it's going that fast. It uses so much fuel even on the runway. 2% of its fuel, some number of tons of fuel are being used just to get that plane from the runway to the gate to the runway, which is insane when you go through all these things and you're just like, yeah, actually, this is kind of a costly thing. But the thing is, you might be like, okay, but it's costly, but it makes the airlines a lot of money. Why isn't all first class done through Concorde? Why did they cancel Concorde in 2003? Why is the mini boom, or what's it called, the baby boom here, why is the baby boom not going to be the future of aircraft then? Well, the big reason behind that is because the airlines don't necessarily like it either. So even once you go past the fact that, yeah, most consumers are never going to consider spending 10 times as much to go in the ultra first class plane, the airlines weren't necessarily down with it as much either, because bear in mind that, again, if you have a London to New York passenger, that's our thing, if they're willing to spend $5,000 on a ticket, or 7,000 on a ticket, I think I said, if they're willing to spend that much on a ticket, you can probably convince them to go in your first class where, you know, as opposed to making, let's make up a margin. You know, let's say you make 1,000 on that if you're going with Concorde, you can make several times that by taking them in your regular plane. So it's kind of bad for their airlines. They kind of leech off their own customers, you know, their own first class customers by putting them in a Concorde, which was, you know, British Airways and Air France. Then there's the second key fact about it, which is the fact that Concorde could only fly very specific routes. So currently to this day, supersonic flights are banned over loads of countries, including the United States, by the way, because of the noise they produce. It's so, you know, like, because it's such a loud noise. Again, double the speed of sound, you create a giant boom. And basically, people don't like that over their land. So that meant that even if you wanted to fly from London to Mexico, they had to either stop over Florida or go slow, which was really bad for fuel, or they had to go around it. They had to take all these inefficient routes, and basically loads of routes just weren't available. So yeah, Concorde, only possible for certain routes. Airlines didn't like it. Most passengers didn't like it. It was just a super rich kind of option. And as a result, it eventually fell out of favor, especially because it got this reputation for being super unsafe. Again, the Tupolev Tu-144, the Soviet plane, that went out of service after a year because it just kept crashing. Same went for Concorde. There was one giant crash. It wasn't actually unsafe. It was something to do with the runway, I think. There was one giant crash, and suddenly everyone's like, oh, yeah, let's not fly Concorde again. And that's what killed Concorde. It was only for the rich. The airlines weren't really too on board of it because they had to have... There's so many other things about why they hated it. Like, you had to have 2 copies at each base. If you had a London to New York route, you couldn't just have the one plane because what if your plane doesn't arrive? You've got to have a spare one. So you'll have all this underutilized stuff, and no one really likes it except super high-speed passengers. And then at the end, even they didn't. So what is the future of flying if it's not Concorde? Because I've really just been, you know, bashing Concorde, which again, I really do quite like. I love the fact that, you know, the British and the French, they got together and they made a cool thing. But I don't think it's actually the future of flying. I think the realistic future of flying is probably planes like the 787 and the 737 MAX. So, again, I know that name means nothing to a lot of you, but these are just planes by Boeing that are mostly designed for fuel efficiency. Because the big revolution in air travel, so I said over the last century is making it affordable. The big, you know, kind of revolution this century, you know, 2000 to now, is low-cost air travel. So, if you look at the biggest airlines in the world, now like 3 or 4 of them are low-cost airlines. Ryanair is one of the biggest airlines in the world, and they do fares starting from like £5. I think their average fare is something like 31 euros or something like that. It's so insanely low. And even if you look at the long distance market where this would be a thing, Norwegian is the biggest new player in there. I've flown Norwegian so many times. It's a delightful experience, and it costs like £150 to go from the UK to New York. I think that's going to be the big revolution over the next 5-10 years. And the reality is, you're not doing that with Concorde. You know, Norwegian isn't going to buy some Concordes to go going over there. You're doing it with the most fuel efficient aircraft, because if you have an aircraft that's fuel efficient, you're spending less on fuel. You can therefore, you know, have lower costs and sell tickets for lower. And right now, again, like I think the lowest ticket you can buy is London to Boston for 120. That can go down significantly because planes like the 787 Dreamliner, I think it is, and the Boeing 736 Devs Max are basically just current planes but more fuel efficient. And I think, again, that's kind of lame to just say, oh, what's the future of flying? Fuel efficiency, isn't it the best? But I think the reality of this is that flight, you know, the cost of flying, it's going to go down significantly. And, you know, again, out of that £120 right now, even though most of that is like taxes and airport fees and all that sort of stuff, the cost that is variable and is controllable is going to be going down and down significantly. And I think, you know, it's been theorized that like less than £100 across the Atlantic, it's going to be happening very, very soon. And this is a result of planes like the 737 MAX, which again, this is the new one. I think it's coming out again. You can learn more about it. Apparently it's like in the flying process right now. But yeah, this is the future of flying, and although it looks a lot like what we have right now, in fact it's designed to be the same as what we have right now, it just means lower cost tickets, which again, would you rather have this for £100 or would you rather have this for 5,000? You tell me in the comments down below. For now though, that is the future of flying. I was going to do this in like 4 minutes, but apparently it's a 9-minute video. Toycat Rambles, hope you all enjoy it. Okay, I'll see you all next Saturday for Geography of Toycat, and goodbye.